Hi, I'm Lorie Coates, BCBA and co-coordinator of the BATE team for Davis School District.
And I'm Jocelyn Ruiz, BCBA and co-coordinator of the BATE team. We're back with another episode of BATE Debate. BATE Debate will address simple research-based behavioral practices that will work with individual students or groups of students in school settings. The situations and questions will be adapted from what we are hearing and seeing in schools. These are common struggles with students of all abilities. Although they are simple strategies, they will be effective at decreasing challenging behavior and making your day just a little easier. We're excited to share these strategies to make them available to SPED teachers, gen ed teachers, and other staff working in schools. And don't forget to check us out on social media. That's at behavior_in_progress on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. All right. Lorie, so last time we talked about finding function. Do you have any stories that you can share about finding function and why that's important?
Yeah, recently I had a school team that I met with. I was called in to consult. And I met with them and even looked at their functional assessment or their functional behavior plan. And they had written on there, control was the function. Controlling others was the function they wrote down. And although it seems that way, we know control is not a function. And when I was able to observe the student, what was happening as a result of them determining control was the function is there was big power struggles. So that's why it's so critical to find a function, whether it's attention, escape, tangibles, to make sure that we're finding the right thing and not ending up in power struggles. Definitely. How about yourself?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we were working with a student who we couldn't really determine whether the function of the student's behavior was attention or escape. So kind of looking at the data and what that was showing us. But then we had a meeting where the OT was able to join, and she shared some insight as to the student needing some more sensory type activities. So that was really cool to kind of get that collaboration and look at things through a different lens. Because although sensory or automatic is a function that we learn about in behavior analysis, it's not usually the first one that we jump to.
Right.
So yeah, just working as a team is really impactful because everybody gets to bring their expertise and share their observations. So
That's really important.
yeah, that was a very cool experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you have the occupational therapist there.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we were able to incorporate some more sensory type interventions, and there was a big difference in
Yeah.
that student's behavior.
That's amazing once we get the right stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, what's our primary focus for today, Jocelyn?
Today we're going to be talking about bogus, not better behavior. So when you hear an educator say the behavior is getting worse, not getting better, what do you see?
Oh, lots of different things, but some of the primary things that I see is that the staff member is just as escalated or not confident. So it could be one way or the other. Escalated because they're frustrated with the student or just not confident in implementing interventions. The student may be also satiated on reinforcement. Or the student may have your number and knows what buttons to push in order to get a reaction from you. They're also, sometimes they're not able to get reinforcement, so we've set the bar so high that they're not able to reach for that reinforcement. If the student rarely earns the reinforcer, it will never work. So you can't have it such a high bar that they can't achieve it. Also look to see if the student needs specific supports, such as visuals or sensory breaks or forewarnings. Sometimes they need those other supports and they're not in place for the student, and so they can't access the reinforcement. Also, watch for extinction bursts. That's one of the biggest things that we see. An extinction burst is when the student's behavior does actually get worse before it gets better because they're not getting that function met in the same way that they were getting it met before. So a lot of people will give up because the student's behavior went up instead of down.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So what do we do to combat all these things?
Sometimes when it feels worse, we're letting our emotions get in the way. I know we've talked about emotions, but they really, when we let them get in the way, they really do impact the way that we're responding to behavior. So if you're escalated, have a strategy for tapping out or waiting. If you're not feeling confident with responding to the behavior, ask for advice, ask for feedback. There's always people that are willing to help support you through those things. Have opportunities to have fun or bring something small and simple that says you've heard them. Well, I was doing a behavior training with some staff, and we were talking about what some ways were that they support students socially, and it was just so great to hear them all talking about the ways that they have fun with students, because when we have fun, it builds rapport and it also makes those difficult days a lot easier to manage.
Definitely. I think sometimes we forget about fun
Yeah,
when we're at school.
Find some time to have some fun, even if it's just a couple of minutes. Those couple of minutes really do go a long way. You can also get the student involved and ask for their input on what kind of reinforcement they would like to earn, what activities they might want to do. So get their input on that, get their buy-in. When you get their buy-in, it makes your interventions more effective too. And then if you are trying a new intervention and you notice that the behaviors are getting worse instead of better, just be consistent, stick with the intervention. That behavior is going to get better if we just keep consistent with our intervention.
Definitely.
All right, so if we're building or repairing relationships, if that's what we need, how should we do this?
So quite often that's the case, right? When we see this bogus, not better, occurring with reinforcement, is it's a little bit about our relationship. And we need to find ways for ourselves to be responsive to the student needs, which sometimes is really difficult when you're really frustrated. So one of the things that we recommend is listen with your eyes and your ears. Try to watch the student to see what's interesting to them, what things they enjoy. And with that, you have to find one thing you like about a student, even when it's been really difficult. I had a teacher I worked with a few years ago, and this one student was escalating quite regularly in her classroom and had a lot of choice words for her, name calling and some other colorful expressions. And so I said, you got to find one thing you like, because she was having a hard time with that. About 3 days later, she texted me and said, I like his shoes. I said, there we go. That's a starting point. So even if it's you just like his shoes. Also give the student some responsibility that you haven't given them before. That can repair that trust that you're showing with them and they're showing with you. And that could be like a classroom job or running something to the office or something like that. Find new reinforcement, because it may be that you have picked a reinforcer that's lost its savor by now. Like, I've had enough Skittles and I need something different. Or it never hit the mark in the first place. So you might want to change the reinforcement to really kind of hit what the student's looking for.
Well,
yeah.
Really quick on that, I think it's important we talk about positive reinforcement all the time, but also looking at there might be students who might be reinforced by negative reinforcement and getting out of things. So
True.
what are ways that we can get them reinforcement in that way too?
Right. I don't want the Skittle. I want to get out of some things. Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing that I've found is that students don't always know how to rebuild those relationships. So you've got to teach them. You've got to really teach how to rebuild, teach those restitution kind of processes. How do you say you're sorry? How do you fix what has happened? And then the other thing I would say, the last thing that's really important, is to look at the home culture and find your cultural humility. Because sometimes what gets in the way is that we're not paying attention to our culture versus another student's culture and really understanding what's going on for them. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of the BAIT Debate. We're very excited to have this opportunity to share behavioral strategies. And looking at all the variables is really critical when you see the student's behavior is getting worse, not better. as well as sometimes just sticking it out and rebuilding relationships. We hope the information was presented in a meaningful way to you all. We also have lots of more exciting topics that we're excited to share with you throughout the school year to keep you and your educator friends reeled in. Be sure to like and share, and we'll catch you next time.